Hey guys, how are ya? So, today's lesson is going to be around how to fish. Now, my mentor Jordan has taught me how to fish. Now, let me expand on that. Whenever people have an idea about a business, it starts as an idea, but through due diligence and execution, it becomes a business. Now, what is due diligence? Now, don't feel bad, guys, if you don't know what that means. When I first started business, I had no clue what it means, but a brief description of what it is basically like before you start a business, you have to do research on the industry, on the market, on whether the business is viable or not, profit and loss, and you just suss economically, physically, just suss if the business is possible. Prospect the business to see if it's worth pursuing. Now, this saves you time. If you don't do due diligence and you get into a business, you end up in a lot of situations that you could have seen coming and saved yourself from. And also you end up, they call it dumb money, spending dumb money, right? Because you're gonna most likely lose money if you don't do due diligence into the business that you're trying to get into. So let me explain my experience with this. When I first started business with Jordan, I was erratic. I used to believe in ideas and I thought I was going to start the next app, and I was overly ambitious. I thought I was a gift to the world almost. I laugh at myself now, I cringe at myself now, but I really thought I was the shit without any understanding of business whatsoever. But let's get into what I pitched Jordan as my first idea. My first idea to Jordan was to build a two-way marketplace where I could get people who have careers like doctors, lawyers, accountants, so on and so forth, to partner up with students who would pay them a fee through our app, and we would get a commission, and they would pay these doctors a fee in order to shadow them for a day. Now, the concept of the idea isn't too bad, but I quickly learned that with apps and big ideas like that, they're very loud, noisy, and difficult. Like, extremely difficult. Now, what Jordan told me wasn't, hey, bro, you can never do this and that. He told me, bro, you want to do this? I don't really advise it, because it's really noisy. It's a really big business. You're going to have to hire doctors and stuff. They have a lot of wages and stuff. But if you want to pursue it, man, have a look into it. Go do some research, call some programmers and see what they say. See if this app's even viable. Is this something they can build? How much would it cost? Go do some research on it. Find out your startup cost. Find out how much time you might have to put in, and so on and so forth. And I was like, oh, okay, sweet. This is great. He's encouraging me. Let's do it. And I went, ambitiously and started calling programmers, telling them I'm going to build the next app. I'm going to be the next, Mark Zuckerberg almost, with my confidence. That's what I came across as. And I was quickly shattered because within one call, I was on the phone with a programmer and he told me, hey mate, yeah, I can do that for you, but it's going to be 100 grand. Are you willing to continue? And I said, whoa, 100 grand. I barely have $50 to my name. I don't know what you're on about, right? So I told him I couldn't commit to it because I didn't have the money. But I went running back to Jordan and I told him, hey bro, he told me it was 100 grand. Do you want to invest with me? Do you want to do this with me? And he was like, whoa, hold your horses. It's 100 grand to build the app, maybe. But how much is it going to cost to keep it running, keep ads going, and so on and so forth? And he quickly painted a picture in my mind. It made me realize that going down that path of app building and stuff like that isn't what it really seems. I don't know why, I'm actually mad at Silicon Valley for this, but they really painted it out to be something that any kid can achieve by getting these minority or this few kids that are beyond human almost, and putting them on every single poster and saying, here's a success story, you should try to be like him. Whereas that's not something you can really try to be, you know what I mean? Mark Zuckerberg, he had opportunities that me and you couldn't even imagine, right? So, and he's extraordinarily intelligent. But anyways, back to what I was saying. He quickly showed me that business was a no-go. For me at this time, in this place in my life, it was a no-go. So I quickly fired back with a new idea. ambitious and all, I wanted to keep going and keep it hustling. So I showed Jordan the idea of bringing salt ice to Australia. Okay, salt ice is a concept that's used all across New Zealand, right? And it's basically where they add salt to ice in order to lower the freezing point and in order to allow ice to stay frozen for longer, all right? So therefore, your bag of ice that you use to keep your beers cold or to keep your Coke cans cold, that ice won't melt as fast, all right? And it has other applications as well. It helps fish last longer. It reduces, wastage from fish markets, so on and so forth, because you're keeping the fish in their natural habitat of salt water and salt ice. All right, and in essence, this was something that's been executed before. This is something that's been done before, and it was a good idea. It just wasn't in Australia. Actually, it was in Australia. It was in Perth. There's one business in Perth that did it, but it's nowhere in Melbourne, and it's nowhere in Brisbane or Sydney or anything of that sort. So I really thought I wanted to pursue this idea. So Jordan told me, all right, this is something we might be able to work with. I want you to go do some research. All right. I want you to go find out what's your startup cost going to be, who's the current market leader, okay, why haven't they started Salt Ice? I want you to figure out your cost per bag, all right? I want you to figure out how many employees you're going to need. I want you to do a bunch of research, right, and come back to me. And I came back to Jordan understanding who the market leaders were, and at that time until today, it's been Bell's Ice. Now, I've watched what they've done and did heaps of research on them and found that they grew their business through acquisition, which is like buying other smaller companies. So they kept doing that. And I realized it wasn't in their best interest for Salt Ice to come to Australia. Now, that's why it hadn't come. They were potentially blocking it from entering Australia, right? Because it would reduce their profit margins, right? Now, this is a key part because this helped me understand what I was up against. I was now up against a company like Bell's, which is huge, and they wouldn't want Salt Ice to get started up in Australia because it would cut into their profit margins. If they can sell you 5 bags of normal ice, and that's equivalent to 3 bags of salt ice, they're not making as much money. And on top of that, the salt cuts into their profits because it's extra cost. So for their business model, it wasn't smart for them to try and incorporate salt into it, considering the fact that salt ice requires different machinery to normal ice and so many other things. Now, this was a central part of my due diligence and my research, all right, to understand what I was trying to overcome, what I was to try and achieve, how big and audacious my goal was. And in my mind, I just thought, bro, I'm just bringing salt ice to Australia. Like, what are you on about? But I didn't understand what I was about to go up against, all right? And when I came to Jordan with all my research and all my numbers, I was so happy because it had like a 97% profit margin. And then he told me, but Najib, it has a very small monetary value. I'm like, what does that mean? Speak English. And he told me that means that per item you sell, you're only making about, $2-3 profit. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And he goes, so therefore, in order to get a scalable business or a big business, you need to sell way more items. Now, that's when logistics becomes a problem. And logistics is just like figuring out how to do something. How are you going to get the ice from the factory to the shop? Who's going to pack it? Who's going to unpack it? Who's counting it? So logistics are just the inner workings of the business, the how-tos, right? And those get really, really complicated with businesses that push out large volumes, right? So I would have had to sell something like 700 bags of ice a week in order to just pay my sister and myself a wage. And this is something Jordan made clear to me. He told me, how much is it per bag? I'm like, oh, it's this much. And it was like $3 profit or something. He's like to me, okay, so how many bags do you need to sell in order to pay yourself a 60 grand wage and your sister a 60 grand wage? And then that came down to something roughly around 700 bags. All right. Now that was mind-blowingly huge number. I would have needed workers, I would have needed a factory, forklifts, trucks, I would have needed a buyer, a big-time buyer as well. I would have had to get into like a couple petrol stations, more than a couple. I would have had to get into like 50 petrol stations to push out that type of volume of ice. Now, that really humbled me. That really put me back in my seat and made me think, wow, what the fuck? I really thought I was going to go in here and prance around this corporate entity and mess with them. And I thought I was going to be an industry leader. I thought I was going to create change. And it was just very audacious. All right? And I look back now and I absolutely am so embarrassed. And I thank Jordan for not crushing me because of the things I said to him. If someone said it to me now today, I would have to show a lot of control to make sure I didn't just laugh. Like it is just a joke, right? Okay, and this is when this by doing due diligence, I started realizing what it actually took to start and make and run a business. I started understanding the workings of a business. All right, and this was one of the most valuable skills Jordan had ever taught me. All right, and once again, I started another business that again teaches me a lesson, so I'll quickly go into it. I started a lawn mowing business, right? And I went door knocking from door to door, right? Getting clients the old-fashioned way. Hey, my name's Najwa Hassan. I cut lawns. Can I help? Can I cut your lawn for you? And I got some people saying no, a lot of people saying no. But I finally got someone who said yes. And my first customer was an elderly woman, and I was cutting her front lawn, all right? And she was really nice to me. She brought me out juice and stuff, and I took my shirt off, and I'm sweating, and I'm not that big, man. My lawnmower was huge, so I'm having the hardest time pushing it, and the grass is a bit steep. It's a bit of a hill. I have to lift it and push it, and it was just a mission cutting that grass, right? I was getting $30 an hour, but that was the hardest to earn $30 of my life, okay? And after doing that, I really sat back and had a moment of realization where I said to myself, far out, if it's this hard just to do a lawn mowing business, what in the world was I thinking when I was saying I'm going to build the next global app? I'm going to build a business that's $5 million plus. Like, I started realizing, whoa, starting that lawn mowing business was amazing for me because it helped me to show humility. It put me back in my place, and not in a bad way. It's not bad to dream, yeah, but it brought me back to reality. Now I want to touch base on something from last week, about 3 days ago, the video I did, all right? The first video I posted. I talked about how older people can see right through us. Now, imagine you're an older businessman who's been in business for a while, and you've been doing your due diligence on companies, you've been doing logistics on companies, and you understand how hard it is to run a business. Now, a teenager runs in your face and tells you, I'm going to help you do the next big thing. I'm going to be the next this, that. And they have no clue of how to run a lawn mowing business or a small business. Now they want to tackle, a business that's mimics the likes of Silicon Valley and stuff like that. You just sound ridiculously childish. Now, the lesson I would give out to you guys today, right, and this is the lesson that I've taken with me every single day from the day Jordan taught me it, is do your research into something before you tell someone about it, number one, right? Because you save yourself looking stupid. That's a big one. But hey, we're all going to look stupid, right? It's a learning experience. But you do your research before you get into anything, and don't put your money into anything that you haven't done your research on. Right? This is personal research. And the way of actually doing research is different depending on what you're doing exactly, but in as a concept, it's all the same, right? So, alrighty guys, so when it comes to due diligence, right, Google and YouTube are your best friends, depending on how you learn. I'm better at learning by listening. Some people are better at learning via reading. Some people are better at learning via doing. Right, doing is always the best way of learning, but when it comes to research, you can't really do. You want to do research before you actually get into actualizing, and as you do it or start your business, you'll learn things along the way, and that's what a mentor helps with. A mentor helps with cutting down that learning curve that you're going to definitely experience when starting a new business. But as I was saying, Google and YouTube are going to be your best friends, all right? You're going to do research into industries before you get into them. Also, talking to people that are in that industry and asking them a bunch of questions. So, for example, I will use a pizza shop as an example, all right? Let's say you wanted to start your own pizza shop, all right? before you even start, you're gonna have to find out location. All right, location is very important for pizza shops. Your location with parking, you gotta make it easily accessible. All right. The next thing you're gonna look into is, what are your products? What are you gonna sell? What kind of pizzas are you gonna sell? Do you have a chef on your team? Is there a specialist that understands how to cook, so on and so forth? All right, you need that. All right? Build a menu list. All right, and then you have to source ingredients. All right, from a wholesaler. All right, and then you have to price your ingredients. Okay. And then you have to have your sale price, calculate your profit and loss, figure out how much staff you're gonna need, put their costs of the staff in there, do the costs for marketing, put a small budget for marketing. When you're starting off, you don't want to spend too much money on it, and then you quickly start to see like how difficult, and it's not to discourage anyone, but to quickly start to see how difficult running a pizza shop becomes. Now, the idea of starting a pizza shop in your mind becomes, now, as you start to learn more about it, you start realizing, bro, I can't start that business in 1 month. I can't start that business in 5 months. I can't start that business in 10 months. That's a 1 year of due diligence. And I've got to find people that are willing to work hard. I've got to get my family on board. I've got to get money into this, which means either I have to save it myself or I have to find someone who's willing to give it to me. And you got to do a series of things in order to get to that finish line. But if you didn't understand due diligence, you would just get a bunch of money, buy a bunch of stuff, and throw things together in a haste way. And you wouldn't understand what's going on. Now, that's when you make huge mistakes, and that's when you lack an understanding of your industry. And due diligence is also doing research into your industry. Who are the other pizza shops? Who are the leading pizza shops in the market? What are they doing to gain more market share? You know, and you study them, see how they're doing. Go to pizza shops, eat their food. Go, wow, how come this pizza shop and that pizza shop's food is completely different? All right, and also you can eat at it multiple times to see if you get the same quality of food every time. Now, that's consistency. Consistency is the key in the food business. You gotta have the same quality of food every time you go there. You can't have the best food of your life one day and the shittest food ever the next. So you gotta keep consistency. Your customers need to know what they're getting when they come in for the second, third, fourth, fifth time, and be able to expect it every time from then on. So now you can see why due diligence is an amazing tool into any business you're going into. And I really want you guys to do your research, all right? Whether it's a t-shirt brand, whether it's car sales, whether it's lawn mowing business, no matter what it is, do your research into the industry, find out which people are your target market and how to market to them, all right? And if you don't know anything about marketing, and if you don't know what a target market is, stay tuned. I will go through these things in my videos to come. But for today, the lesson to take away is do your research. All right, thanks guys. Have a good one.